Hello, my name is Rob Evans, and I'm the School Security Liaison Officer for Vermont's Agency of Education and Department of Public Safety. I'm here with Lieutenant J.J. Bixby from the Rutland County Sheriff's Department and Mr. Joe Harrington, who's an Associate Principal from West Rutland School. What we're here to talk about is some new methodologies about response to an active shooter. And I think it's important that we talk about where we've been, where we are now, and where we are heading for the future. And by design, this instructional webinar is to educate folks about the different response methodologies that are out there, inform you about what's good about those programs and what may be some of the challenges and limitations of those programs, and also offer an opportunity to have some dialogue if folks have questions after this webinar. By design, it is not intended to give you a one schoolhouse solution. One solution is better than the other. It really is going to require some research and some further education and information gathering about what one of these and which one of these methodologies would be best for you to pursue and implement if you choose to implement any of these programs at your schools. So again, it's important to look at where we've come from, and certainly prior to the Columbine shootings and the response to the Columbine shootings, law enforcement's response to an active shooter or an armed intruder type of confrontation was to isolate, contain, and negotiate. And what I mean by that is to isolate the scene from getting any bigger, contain it so that things don't move outside of the perimeter of where the situation is taking place, and then to try to negotiate the situation to a peaceful resolution. And we know that as a result of Columbine, that type of law enforcement response to that type of violent act is not appropriate, and we needed to change things from a law enforcement perspective. And we're not faulting the law enforcement officers that responded that day, because that certainly is the training methodology that was state-of-the-art and a contemporary standard back then. But after each and every one of these incidents, as unfortunate as they are, takes place across the country, it really requires us to take pause and evaluate how we have responded in the past and how we're responding now, and see if there is a better way for us to respond in the future. And that's certainly what we're trying to do now. The traditional school response to an active shooter, lock the doors, close the shades, turn off the lights, get in a corner, get under a desk, keep everybody quiet, turn the cell phones off, and those types of things. That obviously is still a good practice, but it can't be the only practice, and we need to think about moving beyond the traditional lockdown, because from past experiences we can fully understand and grasp that in certain circumstances just the traditional lockdown, where we're locking the doors and not taking any other individual life-saving actions, may not have been the best approach for us to be able to take. And so now we're beginning to look at some things outside of just the traditional lockdown. Where are we heading nationally, not only in the law enforcement community, but in schools across the country? We're looking more at what we're calling options-based responses to an armed confrontation or an active shooter. And what I mean by that is there's no one-size-fits-all to a specific response, that what may be good for one portion of the building may not be so good for another portion of the building. So that if the bad thing or the shooting is taking place on the second floor of a high school in the West Wing, well, maybe the first floor of that school on the east side doesn't need to be in a lockdown. Maybe the best decision for those that aren't where the emergency is taking place is to evacuate, and to give individuals an empowered type of decision-making process that they can make some individual life-saving decisions and life-saving options for themselves. And it speaks to the importance of situational awareness, where folks in their individual educational environments have to continually be aware of what's taking place around them, and that if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't smell right, if it doesn't look right, then they have the authority and the responsibility to do some things in their individual workspace to make themselves and the students that they have responsibility for safe in that environment. There are a variety of emerging response trends that are taking place and are available across the country. And what you see on the screen right now are the most popular ones, kind of the contemporary standards that are being sought after nationally in schools across the country. Certainly, I'm sure most of you have heard about the ALICE Training Institute, ALICE standing for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. The ALERT program from Texas State is the program called Craze, which is the civilian response to an active shooter event. FEMA has some online training that's available for how to respond to an active shooter. I'm sure that many of you have seen the Run, Hide, Fight video that's out there from the Department of Homeland Security. And the I Love You Guys Foundations, which has developed what we call the standard response protocols, which is lockdown, lockout, evacuate, and shelter in place. A real good nonprofit organization out there that develops individual response actions for specific types of emergencies. What I'd like to do now is just kind of go over the things that are related to those specific types of response methodologies that are out there. And the first one that we'll cover is ALICE. And again, the ALICE nomenclature is Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. That is a fee-based response training process. It's proprietary in nature, meaning that you pay for the 16 hours of training that you attend. And I believe the training costs about $600 or $700 per person. It is a train-the-trainer type of program where folks can attend this training, and then they are given all of the resources and materials that they now can go back to their schools and train their administrative staff and teachers on the ALICE method. As I said, when you leave that course, you literally will have all the resources, all the online trainings, the documentation, the PowerPoint slides, those types of things that you can take from that course and then kind of pick and choose the materials that you would like to deliver back at your school. They also have a 1-hour fee-based per user online training that's now available. Each one of the in-person trainings and the online trainings do have a certificate and a testing process associated with that that certifies folks that they have gone through that training. I've been to the ALICE training. It is very easy to follow. There are some great teaching points. The value of that is that you have certified law enforcement officers for the most part that come in and do this training. Again, it's 2 days. The majority of it is instructional based. There is maybe about a half-day worth of some role-playing where folks go through some barricading type of technology, some barricading methodologies, how you might want to counter if you are put in that last type of resort where the decision is that you have to do some type of life-saving action. Goes through all of that. Again, if there are any detractors from it, it is that it's 2 days worth of training, so it's a training and a time commitment. And there also is a fee associated with both the in-person and the 1-hour online training that's available. It certainly has hit national attention. There are schools probably in every one of our states in the country that are seeking this training and have done the implementation. And I know of 3 supervisory unions in the state now that have gotten this training and are at different stages of the implementation process here in Vermont. The next program is the program called Craze, and Craze stands for the Civilian Response to an Active Shooter Event. That is put on by the folks at ALERT, which is the Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training. They're out of Texas State University. The advantage of this program is that in 2013, the FBI partnered with the ALERT folks and named them as their standard for active shooter response training. This training, however, is, for the most part, is geared towards law enforcement, where law enforcement folks are the ones that attend this training, and then just like in ALICE, they are given all of the training resources and materials and PowerPoint presentations and videos that they now can go out and train not only schools but business partners, community members, and those types of organizations in how to respond to an active shooter. They call their response methodologies on the avoid, deny, and defend. But again, it does require an active law enforcement participation. There is testing and a certification that's available upon completion. The downside that I see with this is that it requires a law enforcement presence, and for law enforcement to be actively engaged in going out and doing this training. And I would envision that in Vermont, in some of our more rural areas, that may be a challenge for our law enforcement community. I think the folks that might be able to take advantage of this are the folks that come from a municipal agency where maybe there's a larger number of law enforcement agencies and officers in that area. Again, the disadvantage with that is it's a time situation for law enforcement. And unlike the Alice folks, where teachers and administrators and folks can get that training and then bring that back to their own individual school, it doesn't require law enforcement participation. Run, hide, fight. Again, a lot of you, I'm sure, have seen this video. It's available online. There is no training that's associated with it. It's almost like if you see something, say something type of methodology. It's a great video that's out there. Obviously, it's free, and it's more of a good conversation piece to discuss response options. So if you wanted to sit around with your school staff and your teachers and administrators and talk about what this would mean, and this is what you want to adopt, it's almost like that old fire mentality, stop, drop, and roll type of thing, that if you're on fire. This is if you're confronted, it's run, hide, fight. But if there's a common theme that you're seeing from Alice to Craze to run, hide, fight, there's always going to be a counter type of process with this. And I'm not saying that you need to have that if you want to adopt that. But the common theme in a lot of these now is that there is a fight back and a countering type of component in any of these response methodologies. With this video, there's no test or certification upon completion. Again, it's more just an opportunity to discuss these things and these different types of response actions. The IS 907 Active Shooter, What You Can Do, it's a free online training. It takes about an hour to get through. It's very informative for your staff, so if there is anything that you would like to do that you can quickly get out to your staffs that will make them feel more prepared in how to respond to an event like this, it's a great course to get through. It's easily shared with your staff. There's a certificate of training, a little bit of a testing process at the end of that, and I believe that the Run, Hide, Fight video is a component part of this training. And I'll provide the links for all of these resources at the end of our webinar. But again, free, certification is available, another great conversation piece, and very easy, accessible training to get out quickly to your staff. The I Love You Guys Foundation is a nonprofit organization that was founded by John Michael Keyes, whose daughter was killed in the Platte Canyon school shooting. A contemporary standard in the standard response protocols of lockdown, lockout, shelter in place, and evacuate. And actually the folks from Alert in the Craze training, if you remember from a past slide, it's the civilian response to an active shooter event. They utilize the standard response protocols in their presentation and in their instruction. It too is very easy to follow. It's clear and concise with the response actions. All of the materials around their standard response protocols, their reunification and relocation templated plans, all those types of resources are available at their website and very easily implemented in your school. The Coming Storm video is a video that was produced by the FBI. It was introduced and delivered at last year's International Association of Chiefs of Police conference. I believe about 30,000 of those DVDs were distributed to law enforcement across the country. Just now, local county and state law enforcement agencies in Vermont are getting these videos. And they are, again, a great conversation piece, just like the Run, Hide, Fight video. But this video takes you through an active shooter event, a simulated active shooter event that's taking place at a Institute of Higher Education in Virginia. and it walks through from the threat assessment phase and evaluation of the event, to the event taking place, to some of the aftermath, the unified command process, how folks and additional resources are brought into the scene. Really is a very, very good 360-degree view, 30,000-foot view of what one of these types of events might look like if unfortunately it happened at your school. So these will be available through local, county, or state law enforcement in the next couple of weeks and months if it's something that you wanted to access. By design, the videos are meant for law enforcement to come to you and view that together and have a conversation about what resources and things are available across the state to respond and assist in responding to these types of events. This chart just kind of shows, again, the things that we summarized in each one of the individual slides. Which ones are fee-based, which ones are free, which ones you can get online, which ones you can't, some of the things that are associated, if there's online training that's available, and those types of things. Just kind of a nice little snapshot and a summary of each one of the things side by side. What do I see as some of the options-based response challenges? Well, certainly that you could have different responses to the same scene, where you may have some people that are in a lockdown, and you could have some people within your school that are evacuating. And I know that gets away from, the nice package that we have wrapped up if everybody in our school is going to a lockdown. And certainly that perception and reality for law enforcement that they respond may find the school in a very different stage of response actions, where a portion of the school is locked down and a portion of the school is evacuating. We think that that's okay, but it requires planning, training, and exercising with our local and county and state first responders so that everybody is on the same sheet of music about how we're going to be responding to these types of events. It also requires some level of situational awareness, where we can no longer depend on us getting all the information over the loudspeaker or the public address system telling us this one response action is going to be the only thing that we should be doing. So it requires that we are aware of our surroundings. It requires that we are very clear on what's taking place around us, and we can make decisive life-saving actions based upon the things that are happening around us. It requires also that we are aware of potential development of rally points or hasty reassembly areas, not evacuation sites, but places where people can gather to come together to quickly get some accountability in a safe location. Obviously, those aren't points that we want to respond to that are still in the line of fire or where the bad things are happening, but places that behind the tree or in a parking lot a quarter mile down the road, or a barn that's 150 yards away from the school. Just places on the ground where people can go to quickly get accountability and move to another safe space. Certainly accountability becomes a huge issue for this. If we have folks that are evacuating on our own, some might ask, well, how do we regain accountability? It certainly is something to be discussed with your local first response organizations about how you're going to do this. But I will tell you this, that I would rather folks get out of where the danger is than stay in harm's way and not make the decision to get away from it. There's a saying in the safety and security world that the best place to be during an emergency is wherever the emergency is not taking place. And if we can get away from it, that's probably our best option to pursue. A good thing, and also can be perceived as a bad thing, is the individual ownership of life-saving decisions. And what I mean by that is that people now are given the authority and responsibility to make those individual decisions, and some folks may not want that. Some folks may want to just be told, I'm supposed to do this or I'm supposed to do that, and I'm going to be okay. What we're saying now is that may not be okay, and you're going to have to make some individual decisions. It requires planning, training, and exercising. As we said before, it's going to require some additional levels and additional time and conversations with first response organizations, planning what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. just a lot more time involved in if we're going to begin to implement these types of processes. And there are going to be different levels of approaches and how you take these into different schools in the K through 8 or the elementary, middle school, or high school. The conversations that you're going to be having are going to be very, very different depending upon the schools that you're in. It's also going to be dependent upon the climate and culture that you have in your school. And there are going to be some schools that it's just not going to be an option for whatever reason. And there are going to be some schools that will say, you know what, this is something that we can do. So again, a lot of additional educational, additional information that you folks can access to really make some individual school-based or supervisory union or district decisions on where you want to move forward with this. I now wanted to have JJ and Joe talk a little bit about the implementation process and how that worked for them. And I just want to share that the implementation of Alice for them, what they're doing, would be the same implementation process, whether it's with Craze or Run, Hide, Fight, that the same types of things that JJ and Joe and this supervisory union have done would be the same ones that you would do if you're doing it in your SU or district, or if you're going to apply this to other types of response methodologies. So when you're hearing these things, even though it's Alice specific for them, think about it if it's one of the other response methodologies that you chose to do. So JJ and Joe.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob. And again, just to reiterate that, no matter what option-based response you do choose to use, again, the implementation process is the same with all of them. One of the first things that you want to make sure is that your superintendents and your building and school administrators support the plan. Whatever plan or response based you're looking at, the buy-in coming from the superintendent and the administrators, they have to support the plan. And again, there'll be a few things here where, again, we're going to talk about Alice, but please just remember that it's pertaining to whatever option-based response you're looking at. You want to maintain and reinforce the understanding that Alice or other response actions, they're only an enhancement to your already existing emergency operation plans. The response actions that's only one component of an all hazards approach to your planning process. So this response to this type of situation falls right in line with your plans for flooding or a power loss or any different type of emergency that the school is going to face. This is just another component in response model. Good idea is to develop a core group of trained instructors, preferably individuals within the schools or the school district. It provides a familiar face to the staff. They know who they're talking to, and it comes with their credibility of knowledge of the individual schools and the school districts. You want to understand that your response methodologies are modular. An organization can utilize all, some, or none of the steps in the system, whichever one you choose. Consider what components or steps of the system may or may not be applicable to your school's environment. For an example, an elementary school in a single building will need different strategies and approaches than a senior high school located in multiple buildings throughout the area. Your teachers, staff, and your faculty need to know that their administrators back and support them to make those individual decisions in the event of an emergency. They need to know from their administrator, their superintendent, they have the faith and the authority has been given to them to make those individual decisions. You want to introduce the system slowly at first so that all participants understand what it is. What we did in our supervisory union is we did a general overview of the program with the superintendents and the administrators. Again, once we were all on the same page, we then gave a general brief of the overall system to all teachers in the district. We utilized one of our district-wide teacher meetings to do that. And then after that, we went individually to the schools within the district and offered the training, and were able to answer individual questions about the school, the building, and the pertinent things that apply to that individual school. You also want to make sure that you look for the assistance and support from other schools that have already or are in the process of implementing a response-based program. You want to reach out for and include your local emergency responders in your discussions and your implementation plans, and you want to maintain that collaboration. It's a one-team approach to this kind of situation, and understanding how those other resources are going to respond to your location is going to be very important. It'll help you develop your plans. Everybody brings ideas to the table, and you're allowed to modify and take a look at how these responses are going to take place at your own individual school. You want to spend ample time in developing either papers or mailings that you're going to send out to parents, guardians, and families. Don't lose sight of including the popular social media platforms such as Facebook and Twitter. There is a lot of information that can be put out to these folks. You want to get your message out to them clear and concise so that our parents and our families understand what the school's doing and why we're doing it. You want to follow that up with several informational face-to-face type meetings for the parents. We've already found in our SU that we had one of these meetings, and as the information is put out to more and more staff, it's a good idea to have more of these face-to-face meetings for the parents and responders, so that they gain that information. They're going to continue to have questions. They can be answered by the administrators and the instructors and your core group of trainers that you have. You want to spend time in developing how you'll explain the system and how you're going to implement that. You want to know how you're going to explain that to the media, because they're going to want to know as well. It's new ideas, and we're moving in a different direction from years past, and the media is going to be interested in that, and you want to get the media to put out the message and the ideas in your implementation so that everyone has the correct information and the right information about what you're doing. Would highly recommend to conduct these media interviews, again, just to get the correct message out there so there's no misunderstanding. Another part that we follow up with is conducting school drills and rehearsals, again, utilizing whatever response-based system you're looking at. These drills start to be a little bit different than the traditional fire drill or things that we've done in the past. Your faculty and staff should be given prior notice of the drill. Again, this is in contrast to some of the other drills that we've run before. The drill should be conducted in a slow and methodical and controlled manner by the classroom teacher once directed by the administrator. Again, once the basic concepts are mastered, the speed and efficiency will increase naturally. Again, slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
And to add to the drills aspect of it, but I've found over the years that not every crisis is the same. They're all vastly different from each other. And we're looking at giving scenarios ahead of time. They're going to have the scenario and then empowering each teacher to decide what they would do if that situation arose. Again, so giving it ahead of time, walking through the response that they would think would be best, giving them as much information that we could give them. Sometimes it would be a lot of information, and other crisis situations it may not be that much information. And then allow them and empower them to make decisions that they feel would be best in their specific situation.
So on your screen now you see the all the different response methodologies that we talked about and the links for you to be able to access those. The only one that does not have a link is the Coming Storm video. But again, in the next couple of weeks, months, your local county or state law enforcement agency may be able to provide that to you for viewing and conversation. There are obviously going to be an awful lot of questions and thoughts associated with this. What we have done is there will be a survey tool here. If you press on the link on your screen, you can access that survey tool. and ask the questions of JJ and Joe and myself, and we will post all the answers to those questions by March 15th to make sure that we have tried to answer as many questions as possible. I am also available by email or cell phone anytime if folks want to have a further conversation about this. Just to clarify and reinforce a couple of things, we understand completely that this is moving beyond a comfort zone of some folks, and it's going to take time to introduce this and to get folks comfortable with moving beyond the traditional lockdown. We're not asking for a deadline. We're not asking for time frames. We're asking that you take a look at it and you find the things in the systems that you may be most comfortable with. We also understand completely that the delivery systems and the methodologies for elementary school kids will be very different than the systems of delivery and conversations that you'll be having at the high school level. I will also be providing you a variety of resources from the National Association of School Resource Officers and School Psychiatrists that talks about how to deliver these types of difficult training topics at the age-appropriate level to have them in the elementary, middle, and high school level. That may give you a little bit of comfort knowing that there are ways to deliver these types of trainings in an age-appropriate fashion. And those can hopefully be some tools and resources for you if and when you choose to do some of these and implement these, and having those conversations with the parents and guardians of the kids in your school to make sure that those messages are going in a fashion that's not going to cause any undue concern for your parents or the students that are receiving it. So again, I want to thank you for participating in the webinar. I know that it's an awful lot of information, and for some of you it may be very, very new. I encourage you to go to the links, take a look at the links, see which ones you think would be helpful to take further looks at. Feel free to call me, and we can certainly share more information and more conversation, and there will be some additional opportunities to have further conversations about this in the future. So I look forward to hearing from all of you.